Another great reading by Veronica. Thank you so much. Oh boy, I wrote some notes. I want to find them. Yeah, here we go. I love the guy I'm going to introduce. His name's Kevin H. I've known him for a good many years. I knew him back in the day when he was sponsored by a man by the name of Bill Baldwin. I could say his last name because he's passed. I also know that Kevin was on the staff, if not an administrator, of Smithers. Smithers got a real, nobody even remembers the name of Smithers anymore because its director started promoting moderation management, which Kevin tried to warn everybody about. And she had a very fatal accident, which gave Smithers a black eye. During the day, it was as well known as Betty Ford Clinic or Hazleton. It was like cutting edge. All the rock stars went there and politicians and everything. Through Kevin, I got involved with a strange group called the River Group, an AA group that only meets twice a year. In the spring, we would go up to Stepping Stones and we would do yard work or whatever needed to be done to fix up the place. And then in the fall, we'd spend a weekend up at the Wilson House and do some heavy stuff, like painting and repairing and all that kind of good stuff. And lastly, I believe, I don't know if Lois was alive or not, but I remember seeing Kevin speaking at Lois's picnic at Stepping Stones. So he's a great speaker, and I'm pretty sure all of you are going to really enjoy Kevin. Help me welcome Kevin.
Am I coming through? Could somebody nod for me? Great, thank you very much. My name is Kevin Heaney and I'm an alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic according to Silkworth of the doomed and hopeless variety. I want to thank Joel for inviting me to come here. I visited this meeting about 5 times in the last 2 months to get ready for this. And I have to tell you, I wanted to call Joel, somewhere between 15 and 30 times today to say, get another speaker. I can't do this. I speak frequently, but there's this group has an intensity that just comes through. And, that age-old alcoholic root cause of I'm not good enough and I don't really belong here. So you'll have to tolerate my mumbling insecurity as I try to move along. So I want to talk a little bit about booze, and I would like to, if it's all right, give a close reading for what I find so important in this article. I first encountered this when General Service, I guess it was General Service, or published AA Language of the Heart, Volume 1. And this was one of the essays in it. And I stumbled across this and was just blown away by it. But like so many things in a life of recovery, I find the miraculous, I find the wonderful, and I abandon it for some silly thing or get distracted. So let me go back to basic booze. I'm Irish Catholic, which means equivalent to saying going to be an alcoholic. Both of my grandfathers died from this disease. My parents were skipped generation. I began drinking in 8th grade and drank till I was 29. I can sum up my alcoholism, and I don't mean my drinking. I mean, when I'm not in recovery, when I'm not spiritually balanced, my alcoholism can be summed up with the phrase, not enough. I am not enough. I am not smart enough, funny enough, handsome enough, young enough, old enough, rich enough. You name it, if it's desirable, I don't have enough of it. If it's about insecure, self-conscious, frightened, neurotic, I've got too much of it. And then on Memorial Day weekend in 8th grade, I did a sleepover at my buddy Jeff's house, and he produced a small bottle of Southern Comfort, and I found a higher power. The next morning, walking home, it was a gorgeous May morning, and I didn't know I did this, but I did this. I turned my will and my life over to alcohol because alcohol was an incredible solution. Clancy, God rest his soul, used to say that what we have is a life problem and booze is an answer. And then it becomes a booze problem, but ultimately it's a life problem. I drank, as I said, from 8th grade till 29. I did everything I humanly could to not be an alcoholic. I ran 3 miles a day, 4 times a week. I swam a mile a day, 7 times a week. I played a racket sport called squash 5 to 15 times a week. I ate brown rice, tofu, raw vegetables. I was in psychotherapy on the couch twice a week. I was using 3 different forms of prayer and meditation. I've been an atheist from when I was old enough to discover there was something interesting below my belt. I'll leave you to guess what I'm talking about with that. But I was an atheist, but I'd gone back to the rosary bead of my Catholic background. I was doing all this stuff to not drink the way I was drinking because I had tried over and over again, except the only thing that I didn't do was the only thing that has worked for me, which is to come to the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous and fall on my knees and beg a God I don't believe in and you people who I don't want to be around me to please help me. And the miracle happened. There was a dude in Harlem who used to say, Robert's dead now. Robert used to say he got sober without his permission. And that's the truth for me. I was given this remarkable gift of, I'm going to call it sobriety, but I'm going to change that word to abstinence in a moment. But I was given this. I came in 82. At the time, the Big Book was absolutely out of favor. In New York City, I think there were 2 Big Book meetings and Joel or Bob, who's also on the call, can correct me. There were probably 1,500 to 1,700 meetings a week in New York, and that's how few there were. Joe and Charlie should be as sainted as should Jung and Silkworth, because they put the Big Book back into our hands and made it and gave us our solution back, or at least I feel very much that way. So you better be prepared. I'm a New Yorker. I won't use foul language, or I'll try real hard not to, but I will be obnoxious. That's our nature. So you got to bear with me. And I won't be here next week. So if it's really bothering you, change the channel and come back. No, it'll be safe. Anyhow, so I love booze and I loved what it did for me. And it did so much for me. If I hadn't found booze in 8th grade, I would have had to kill myself at 15 or kill my father at 17. Booze was a solution and it worked so well. And then when it stopped working and it was slow and gradual, my God, it was horrible. You know, when the consumption became unpredictable, the nights where I drink all night long and would barely get a buzz, and the other nights I'd have a white wine spritzer and feel smashed. And the problem was, if it was a good night, it was always ending too quickly. And if it was a bad night or a bad week, it went on forever and ever and ever. And I started trying to taper and I started trying to cut back. Oh, my God has a sense of humor. So I went to social work school at Columbia University, and my God sent me to a rehab. And not in the sense that I was admitted, he sent me to be a social work intern for a year. So I got exposed to you people. And I got to see the miracle of people sitting in a circle and telling the truth. Now, I come from an Irish Catholic family where we communicated by lies, by sarcasm, and by silence. And to see people tell the truth, I was an English major, so I had read 2/3 of the great Western literature. I'd seen, people on plays and in movies tell the truth. I'd never actually seen another human being tell the truth. And I saw you people tell the truth, and it was so attractive. And I wanted to join you. But there's a reality of alcoholism that my wanting it to be done does not mean it's done. We had an old cliche, some of you I'm sure know it, when you're dancing with an 800-pound gorilla, the dance is over when the gorilla says, not when I say. So I made these efforts to stop, and sometimes they were half-hearted and sometimes they were half-assed, but I tried. And then other times I gave up and just drank. And the game I played at the end was I would come home from the bars, I would buy a 6-pack, I would drink the 6-pack, I smoked cigarettes, Camel cigarettes, the real Camels, not the new ones. And I would finish the last beer, open the window of my tenement. I would throw the beer against the wall across from me, which is like 4 feet away. This is New York I'm talking about. I would take the cigarette, take a deep drag, flick it out and say, I'm done. No more drinking, no more smoking. I'm changing my life. When I finally got sober, there was this mountain of brown glass in the alleyway from years of me smashing the bottles and doing this. And some nights I wasn't finished, so I had to go out 3 and 4 times to get to that last moment. You know, I would throw the bottle, and the point is I couldn't get off the merry-go-round. And then one day I walked into my office. Excuse me. I walked into my office. I was the head of a children's division of a social service agency. And I knew I was going to lose the job. I was going to lose my family. I was going to lose the woman I loved. I was going to lose everything. And I knew it was going to happen, and it was going to happen fast. And I looked down on First Avenue, and I knew I would be living on the streets, and I knew I would drink every day, and I knew it wasn't going to be over quickly. And I knew I would get 1 or 2 good drunks a year, but mostly I would just drink for relief. And I walked back into my office, and I sat on my chair, and I looked up at the ceiling and said, God help me. And I hadn't believed in God in 20 years. And I lit a Camel, because there is no God. That's bullshit. You know, people who believe in God are peasants or people who can't afford therapy, you know, and I was neither of those. And in walked my assistant, her job had been to take care of me. And I made her do everything that I was supposed to do. It was an inappropriate relationship, trying to get her father-in-law to get me a job on Wall Street, which is my solution, go and get rich. And she looked at me and she said, what's wrong with you? And I said, because I'm in therapy twice a week, I had all my issues very clearly in front of me. So I went down them. My sexual identity crisis is up. My sexual functioning is down. I'm ending a relationship. I don't know where to go. I'm in a career where I'm getting promoted. I want to get into a career and I can't get hired. The mother who raised me, my mom died when I was 8. The mother who raised me is now dying of cancer. And then the last thing was, and I'm drinking a little too much. And she rolled her sleeves up real deep, you know, on both arms, and held her arms out to me like Jesus Christ on the cross. And from her wrist to her elbows on both arms were Frankenstein stitches. And she said, when I went to Barbados in February, I didn't go to Barbados. I was locked up in Metropolitan Hospital. Metropolitan Hospital is a city hospital. It is a shit hospital that women from the fancy part of New Jersey, Princeton, New Jersey, that she came from, they don't go to that kind of hospital unless they're emergency room driven there. And she held her arms out to me and said, I'm an alcoholic and I don't drink. Will you go to an AA meeting with me? And I went with her that night. There's a writer named Kurt Vonnegut from the 70s who was very popular, who actually said AA was the 3rd most important book ever written. And Kurt was not a member. Kurt said in one of his stories, Cat's Cradle, that unusual travel plans are dancing lessons from God. And my God was asking me out on the floor. I'm going to jump forward. So I put the plug in the jug. I'll spare you the story. I got 2.5 years doing fellowship, doing ashtrays, brooms, and chairs. I took on service jobs. I tried to go with the steps, but I was still an atheist and couldn't buy into it. And now I got the job on Wall Street, which I discover I hated, and it was killing me. And I woke up one morning in August of 1984, and I wanted to kill myself. And I went to a meeting called the 79th Street Workshop, which used to be the largest meeting in the world, or at least the greatest number of meetings a week. And I met a dude there who I knew, and he basically was never formally my sponsor, but he taught me that in the big book, there are 197 promises. And that the big book reads like the bank robber's note. The bank robber's note says, do what I say and nobody gets hurt. And this man walked me and 3 other guys through a big book study, which I have been doing ever since. In fact, I just started the 69th big book study that I am conducting. I do 2 a year with whoever wants to be in it. We start at the doctor's opinion and read through to 164 and try to do the work. And I didn't have to kill myself, and I grew. Fast forward 15 years, and the spiritual program I'm working just ain't cutting it. And I'm back in a bad job situation, and my father's dying, and there's tensions all around. And I go to a meeting, Joel's home group called the Atlantic Group, a spinoff of Clancy's Pacific Group, and I hear some mook with 4 months talk about having this vision in which his mother, who was a heroin addict who died on an overdose, came to him on a sea of candles and told him to turn to God. And I thought, I've got 15 years. I pray and meditate all the time. I've done step work. I'm taking people through the book. I'm sponsored. I'm doing all the right things. Why don't I have what he has? Which is exactly where this article comes up. I've spent a lot of time on the big book, so I will accept that I am scholarly with that. I don't know Bill's writing so well. I hope to know them better. But as far as I'm concerned, this is the second most important thing he wrote, because this is a document. In this article, he documents his failure to put this into effect. There's a book called Two-Way Prayer, How to Talk to God. I had the honor of meeting the last surviving member of the Oxford group who transmitted this truth to an AA author. Joe and Charlie did seminars with this gentleman. Jim Houck was his name. He was not an AA member, but he had an awakening, an Oxford group awakening. And he said of Bill that Bill couldn't practice the program that he gave us. And this is Bill in this article saying that. And just his honesty of that in the opening line still can often lack the emotional sobriety. And he goes on to say, my failure to grow up emotionally and spiritually. And then the next line, which is so inclusive, my God, how painful. 3 years ago, in the height of Corona, I was at a meeting on the West Coast, and a fellow said, and I love this line, he said, it wasn't a fifth step, he was just sharing some truth about himself with someone. And when he was finished, the guy looked at him and put his hand on his shoulder and said, me too. And the gentleman said that my whole life I've been waiting for someone to say that. And that the founder is saying me too, that he brings this program to us. The next sentence down where he says, how to translate a right mental conviction into a right emotional result. It's not enough to have the words. I need the words and music to have the song. And the music is what comes out of my heart when I'm freed of self. So at that 15-year mark, I turned and went searching and found a form of Tibetan Buddhism and gave it was exquisite, but I only gave it a half-assed effort. And I think that's ultimately what Bill's talking about here. Bob and I were discussing this article a couple of months ago, and Bob said, and it's true, there's nothing in this article that isn't in the big book, that isn't, clearly covered. What's covered here and what makes it so vital, so vibrant, so alive for me is that the founder is saying, I invented this and I can't use this machine properly. And he's inviting us to go deeper. And where he says, even as we hew away, peace and joy still eluded us. And, so let me cop to this, and maybe some of you can do the me too. How many of you have the books, have the meditations, have the sponsees, have the sponsor, and still there are moments where the dark night of the soul seems to go on for too long? And there's that pain and that, I'm trying, but it's just not happening. I'm rubbing the sticks together, but I'm not getting fire. And then Bill says this beautiful line, I have recently come to believe that this can be achieved. Ladies and gentlemen, when the big book says it is God's plan for me to be happy, joyous, and free, if I follow God's plan, I can be that. But it requires much more effort than I want to undertake. I'm a psychotherapist. Most of my patients, no, that's not true. About half of them know that I'm in recovery. Half of them know me from the rooms. So I don't hide that fact. But the truth of the matter is humans are lazy. We don't want to put in the effort. We want tight buns, and a six-pack ab. And I'm not talking drinking six-pack ab. I mean, that tight stomach. But I won't go to the gym and do the push-ups, and I won't push away from the dining room table and stop eating. I want it both ways. Today, this will amuse me, Joel and Bob. New York State penal system grabbed me. I had to do jury duty. So I go downtown and I go into the court, and I've been in jail several times in my life, brief stints. But when you do jury duty, at least my experience is, it's the next best thing to being in jail, because you go in when they tell you to, or they're going to fine you, and you come out when they tell you when you can go to the bathroom and when you can go to lunch and when you have to be back. And I'm paid by the hour. And so if I'm not at my office, I'm not getting paid. And I actually have a commitment to my patients. So I'm sitting there and they say, if we don't get a call from the criminal division, we're going to release you all. And suddenly, let me go, let me go, let me go, let me go. Most of my prayers, there's a spiritual teacher named Joe Goldsmith who I studied a lot. Most of my prayers are Santa Claus prayers. God, give me this, God, give me that. The true AA, and this is what Bill gets to, is not, can I get what I want? It's, can I give what I have? And there's a point in the AA process where this thing takes over. And it's not, I carry the message because I have to. I carry the message because I don't want to drink, though I don't want to drink, and I don't want you to drink. But there comes a point where the plane stops taxiing down the runway and it takes off. And now it's an airplane, not a truck. And the takeoff point is where I give it away, because why wouldn't I give it away? I've got this thing. Can I offer it to you? But I collapse into what Bill describes. The problem is dependence. In the big book, it tells me God is everything or nothing. And I nickel and dime that. There was a guy named Dominic, an ex-mafiosi who was an incredibly powerful force in New York AA for many years. And Dominic would say in this East New York accent, Italian accent, of course, who or what are you making your higher power? And that's what Bill's getting at here. My dependence on someone is, if I got this, if I got that, if I got the cigarette, if I got the orgasm, if I got the beachfront property, if I got my hair back, if I didn't have limbs that were aching because I'm 71 now, I'm not 22 anymore. I'm always looking for the external. AA's true answer is it's the inside job. And that inside job is, how do I take care of you? And that Chuck Chamberlain said it beautifully. It's my job to help God's kids get what they need, and it's God's job to get me what I need. And I've always been given what I need. Often I've not been given what I want. And yet, like a sulky little boy, I don't appreciate the miracle of this thing. That's what Bill's talking about when he says in this revolutionary line, and if you ever want to get beaten at a meeting, say this line out loud and don't attribute it to Bill. I found I had to cut every ounce of will. It had to exert every ounce of will and action to cut off these faulty emotional dependencies on people, upon AA, upon any set of circumstances. Higher power, whatever that means to you, is everything or nothing. And as some great AA speaker said, if God is nothing, then get a gun, get the booze, get the drugs you want, do what you want. But if God's everything, let it go, Kevin, let it go, Kevin. And it takes the God who's been most important to me. It's 40 years now that I have not had to kill myself. And killing myself has come up much more often than getting high. Is because the gift of desperation drove me on, as it's driving Bill on in creating this. And he says it's to offer love to others regardless of the return. That's the solution. The problem is my dependence. And Bill points out that that dependence turns into demands. If only my family, my wife, the politicians, you name it, if only the sun would do what I want it to do. I mean, I'm not insane. I don't announce that publicly a lot, but with you, I can say it because I'm depending upon things. And what does Bill tell me? That when these dependents aren't met, I become angry. I become depressed. So, ladies and gentlemen, Joel and I used to go up to where Bill was born in Vermont every year. And we used to go up to where Bill and Lois lived. And I don't own a car. I don't have a driver's license. I'm one of the few people you'll meet who's Ivy League educated, successful white male who doesn't have a driver's license, not because the state took it away, because I'm a scaredy cat of cars. But anyhow, so I walked from the train station to Bill and Lois's, about 3 miles. And one day, the gas station attendant said, "Are you going up to the Wilson's place, Stepping Stones?" And I said, "Yes." He was an old guy. He said, "Bill used to pass my station going up there." He said, and the saddest thing was when the emphysema got him and he couldn't walk anymore. And he would take 10 paces and sit, and 10 paces and sit. Ladies and gentlemen, cancer will come, aging will come. There'll be economic reversals. There will be corona or other darknesses. I can't rely on things. AA is about, I must rely on this unseen but experienced thing. And that's what Bill is challenging to do. And he says the primary healing circuit is the outgoing love of God's creation. But I'll add one thing. There was a gentleman in California, Chuck Mulhern, not Chuck Chamberlain, who I adore also. And Chuck would say, when people go out with serious time, 10, 20, 30 years, they go out for one reason and one reason only: the self-hatred got them. And before I can offer love, and this is something Bob, who's on this call, said to me 25 years ago. See, I couldn't, Bob said, you got to be able to love yourself to really fully love others. But I was very crippled. So I had to love you and then have it reflect back. And over time, I could grow. But the challenge is to forgive myself. The challenge is to embrace. I'll tell you one more anecdote and then I'll shut up. And Joel, I hope I covered some of the points. So I'm a therapist and I was treating this woman spectacular. At 16, she got sober. She's now getting her doctorate at Berkeley in some elevated form of psychological neurological studies. And she kept referring to her sponsor's sponsor, who said, it's not good enough to accept, we must embrace. And finally, one day I really listened and I thought, what are you talking about? The highest we can achieve in AA is Dr. Paul's acceptance. And she was saying it's not good enough to accept. And I went, this is the honest to God truth. I went to a meeting every night for the next 6 nights, and I announced this, and I announced my confusion and my displeasure and my shock. And people rushed over to me like my hair was on fire. It was so kind. And they said, Kevin, stop it. You're such a masochist. You're a great AA. You work a program. You help people. You know, you really stop that. And on the 7th day, I texted my patient and said, can I get your sponsor's number so I can call her sponsor? And I called this woman in Texas. I've never met her. I've worked with her for 10 years now, to find out what does it mean to embrace. And my sponsor, Joe, taught me this. The third column in the usual Joe and Charlie columns layout, the big book layout, third column is affects my. And what Joe has taught me is the affects my is not from others. It's from my God. That the answer to the third column affects my self-esteem, ambitions, security, etc., is not others, but a third step of turning my will and my life over to God. My wife can be unpleasant. The kids on the subway can refuse to get out of the way, so I have to push through. The weather can be nasty. I can age. It's to embrace these things, because in the embracing it is when God comes in to save me. See, because I want to save myself because I don't trust. Chuck Chamberlain would say, everyone believes in God, nobody trusts him. And it's by the embracing, and it's by undertaking this course of action. Clancy used to say, you know, that the essence of AA is when one drunk talks to another and creates identification such that the one who is still suffering undertakes a course of action that he or she does not yet believe in. And it's by taking these actions that I find out it's safe. God loves me. It's okay. You'll be all right. You didn't get the little, pony you wanted, but you got something better. The Corona bonus that came to me was, my wife and I didn't get sick. We lost no loved ones, but I lived 10 blocks from Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. During the height of it, they were stacking the bodies outside of the hospital, ladies and gentlemen. There wasn't enough space in the morgues, and the ambulances were running constantly, and I was terrified. But out of that fear, let me need God more desperately. Like Bill says on page 12, I had needed and wanted God, and he, she, it came. But then he adds the terrible truth, but the sense of the pleasant presence was blotted out by worldly clamors, mostly those within myself. And Bill is inviting us in this exquisite article to let go and let God. And what is the magic of let go and let God? The D word, dependence on God. There was a gentleman, and I will shut up with this, Joel. In 9/11, which was a very big event in my city and in our nation, there was a Catholic priest who died. His name was Father Michael Judge. Michael was a member of the fellowship. And Michael said at a meeting in Greenwich Village 5 days before 9/11, Michael said in a very street way, you could drop a fucking atom bomb on my head, but if I'm right with God, I'll be okay. And there were photos, and you can get them if you look them up, of Michael being carried out on a chair dead by 4 FDNY workers. And he has a look of peace on his face that I rarely see. I want that. And what is the answer? Love. Love myself, love higher power, love you people, give without asking return. I've been taken care of. I just suffer from mental obsessions that I got screwed. I wake up every morning an atheist, and I wake up believing I got cheated. You know, I'm the guy who gets invited into heaven and gets kicked out because he gets in a fight with the busboy. You know, I don't know how to have a good time, but you people have been very kind. If I offended anyone with anything I said, I know I can be provocative. Please get my number from Joel so that I can make it right with you, because I certainly don't want to offend anyone. But I have found that this thin thread of God saves me. All right, I'll tell you one last story. So I was invited to Copenhagen last year to speak at the Scandinavian convention. Everything went great. I get into my hotel room and I had this little bag that I had my wallet, my phone, my passport, my vaccination card. I left it in the cab. And oh my God, I'm screwed. I don't have the phone number of the people. I don't even know how to use a Danish phone. I don't even know their last names. If this isn't returned to me, I'm going to have to be calling my wife. She's going to be so mad at me that the idiot did this again. I'm going to have to go to the embassy. It's going to be closed on Saturday. All I've got is literally one roll and 100 krona, which I think buy me 2 cups of coffee. I spend the night in terror. I meditate, I pray, I calm down, fall asleep, wake up in terror, predicate May, and then the couple next door starts having sex, so I can't go back to bed. So I get up and wash my underwear and my socks and my shirt, and then I go back to pray, meditate, and finally I fall asleep. There are times where higher power just doesn't seem with us, and that's when we have to hang tough. And that's when I need you people, because I'm scared and I'm hurt. Please hold me. Thank you very much.
Oh, boy. Thank you so much, Kevin. You don't know how much I missed hearing you again. It was, I thought of you when they said I could start asking people to share. I used to hear you a lot more often when I lived in New York. I've been out here now 11, 12 years. So it was great talk. And we talk on the phone occasionally. You're somebody that if I need to swap a 4th or 5th step with, I'll call you up, you know, because you're really great. At this point, we allow the speaker to call on people in the Hollywood squares, or we can start asking you questions. I mean, one of the questions.
I'm on my phone, so I'm having trouble seeing the squares. My computer doesn't work at home. So could you do the picking? I can't see this.
Okay, people to ask you questions and stuff. Okay.
Whatever you want to do.
Or
but
people will volunteer and raise their hand. I just have one clarification I would like you to speak on, was that whole Smithers time in your life. Could you elaborate once more on that?
Sure. The management who brought me in knew that I was a 12-step fanatic, but they also knew that I was in favor of alternate methods of treatment, cognitive behavioral approaches. They never condoned giving alcohol to people. It was misrepresented in the press that alcohol was given on the unit. That was a distortion. That was a lie. But in fact, they were in favor of moderation management. They were in favor of smart recovery. They were in favor, which I think, you know, a candy store should have not just chocolate, but other things available. What I didn't approve of was on the inpatient unit. I do not believe people who are that vulnerable and who clearly need so much support to be tempted by being told, maybe you can try controlled drinking. I opposed that, but they didn't want to hear it. I recommended that not be introduced until people were at least 6 months in recovery in the outpatient side. But it was a battle I lost over and over again, which just for truth in advertising brought me to the point of suicide, because I couldn't get them to do what I wanted them to do, because I didn't know how to surrender, accept, and embrace. And I really mean that. It broke my spirit. Why? Because I wanted what I wanted. give me what I want and I'll be happy, as opposed to higher power, give me what you think is good for me. So I hope that clarifies both points. It was self-will.
Okay, we'll go to a show of hands. Anybody want to ask Kevin any questions? If not, I'll pick someone.
Hey, my name's Graham D. I'm in Nashville, and I'm just going to jump in, which that's my first time here. A friend invited me. I'm so glad to be here and so glad to hear you speak. I got an easy one. What's your home group there in New York?
Oh, on Mondays, I go to a meeting called 22 Below, which is virtual. On Tuesdays, I have patients all day, so I can't. Wednesdays, I go to the NYU 2 p.m. Big Book study. Thursdays, there's a small meditation meeting I go to. If you want the addresses, I'll have, though I think they're intergroup. Friday, I go to this spectacular meeting out of Boston called the Beacon Group, which is a 12 o'clock meeting, Monday through Friday, though Fridays is the day I get there. Saturdays, I go to a meeting. It's a meditation meeting that Jim Kay, you would remember him, Joel, runs. It used to be on a beach in West Hampton out on Long Island, but now it's virtual. And then Sundays, I go to a meeting in the East Bay by San Francisco area, sir.
Thank God for Zoom.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Veronica, you're up.
Hi everyone. Veronica, alcoholic. Hey Kevin, thank you so much. Hang on a minute. I just want to change my. I want to see if I can find you. Where are you? I don't know what my. Hold on. Never mind. Kevin, I've got a couple of questions actually. You said, and what I'm asking is for maybe some examples or for you to talk a little bit more about it. As you said, one of the only reasons why old timers go out or people with any length, of sobriety go out is because of self-hatred. The self-hatred gets them. If you've got any personal examples or, I would have thought we'd work through some of that doing step work, but, maybe not. So that's the first one. And the second
Actually,
one.
let me answer that now.
Great.
The rigorous self-honesty would be, if I thought I got rid of it, but I've still got it, I've still got it. And I have to go back and go deeper. And if, Veronica, I have a hole in my soul, I'm a good man, but I have this terrible concept about myself where what I do falls away. It's like it's burnt up to the point that someone who was a patient who became a sponsee said, you don't like yourself. You need to write down nice things people say to you. And she went on to be a major model in Europe and came back literally 4 months ago and said, and I said, I've been doing it. She said, how many volumes? I said, well, I've got one thin book. She said, then you're not doing what I told you to do. It's we can, and this is, I want to make this point, Veronica, I can think I've gone through the steps, but if I'm on a diet and I'm not losing weight, there's a problem here. And if I've done the steps and I still have these residual self-hatreds, doubts, insecurities, then I have to just say, please help me to see, where do I need to go deeper or go different? Yes. But that would be, does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Actually, that really resonates with me. Thank you. And the second one that I have, it's not good enough to accept, we must embrace. And then you talked about, the sponsor that you called the sponsor. What could you give some examples or talk to us a little bit about your experience of the difference between accepting it and then embracing, or some things that you embraced that you went, oh, that's what it means. Thank you.
I think it's catching myself in the dishonest sense that I've resolved something that I haven't resolved, that I've forgiven someone when I'm still holding on to resentments or still threatened by them. And the embracing it is that, the big book tells me they don't have to change. Our problems are of our own making. And expecting my sister with dementia to make sense is not going to happen. Expecting my sister who has Parkinson's to walk again is not going to happen. And the same thing happens, in intimate relationships. I'm demanding, like Bill said, I'm demanding. And then because I'm depending upon you, I'm not depending enough upon God. I'm not seeking that peace that comes from within. And then if you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. One of the greatest things my sponsor, Joe is her name, says to me is, Kevin, the big question in helping another person is how far back to stand. Because you think, I lean into it. I think I have to be on top of them. And Joe tells me, and this is straight Al-Anon, but Joe says after the first step, it's all Al-Anon anyhow. And Joe says, help that is not requested is rarely helpful. It's allowing people to go their own way. It's respecting their dignity. If you want to die with a needle in your arm or slow misery, I don't want to as much anymore. But when I insist you be different, it's me denying that the world is right. I mean, I know there are ugly, ugly things that are going on out there. I'm not an idiot.
Yep.
But the very simple rule is pain is an essential part of life, but resisting it translates it into suffering. It kicks it up a notch. I need to open my hand more, to let go, to open my heart, to open my eyes.
Thank you.
Barry, I believe you're up.
Hi, my name is Mary. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Kevin. I'm Irish too. The last 3 months have been kind of like the dark night of the soul for me, and I'm trying to go deeper. I'm not trying, but I've moved a couple times, and I got a sponsor in Tucson, and we're going through the book, and honestly, I was going to ask the same question that Veronica did about how do you embrace
ask it anyhow, because you'll ask it in a different way that'll help someone else hear it and help me hear it. Please ask it. This isn't Hollywood Squares where the first one, the answer is the winner. Please ask it.
Okay. Honestly, I don't think I accepted my alcoholism for like 40 years. So I can't even, I'm still having trouble accepting. And I had a relapse at 9 years and a relapse at 11 years. So I must be hating on myself here or something. But getting back to the embrace question, like I said, I have a hard time accepting things. How in the hell am I going to get to how am I going to embrace something? I really want to get better. I am really so tired of suffering that, I know helping others is like key to like, you give it away so you can keep it, but talk about resisting. I've always resisted that, and I don't know why, because I like people. But it's like I'm scared, or I hold back, and I just want the remaining part of my life to be at peace, and so I'm trying to do everything I can to get there, but I don't know, I'm like in kindergarten again. So I've been around since like the 80s, but some people are quicker, or some people are slower, whatever that saying is. And I'm one of the slow ones, I guess, in terms of just well, I don't think I don't know if I'm defiant, but I'm I'm starting to stutter now. I'm sorry, not stutter, but I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I don't know if you get anything out of that, Kevin, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Mary, I would just offer to you, Bill has this great little note about that matter of slips. And he says, you know, your path is not the easy path, and this is what's been laid out. Mary, you're still here. In my career, I have buried more men and women than wartime generals buried from this disease. You're here. And it may be that the path you have to go has been harder and slower with reversals. Mary, if I counted all of the times I was living in self-will, I'm no better than you, way worse than you. That my day count is intact, who cares?
Yeah.
When I was acting
Thank
like
you.
an animal to my wife, when I was inconsiderate, when I was self-absorbed. You know, let's not let a day count be confused with a transformed heart. Mary, can you just do this? Bill Baldwin, I was once all messed up. The job was horrible. And I called him and I said, I don't know what to do, Bill. I'm applying. And he said, I can't do anything. And Bill said, can you do one thing, Kevin? And I started to say, no, Bill, you don't understand. I've got to get a job right away. And he said, can you do one thing? And I shut up and did. Mary, could you try just one thing for the next day? Just one more thing, with the understanding, please help me. I mean, this thing starts out with, I am broken. And we don't come here to show that we're fixed. We come here because we're broken and to be fixed and help others be fixed. I just was in a meeting. There were 700 years. It was the Lenox Hill group, Bob and Joel. Nobody mentioned steps. Nobody mentioned God. It was hollow. Mary, you're at least real with this. I thank you for your honesty. You know, one of my trainee therapists used to say, it's like the dentist's office, point to the tooth that hurts. Mary, you just told us which tooth hurts.
Oh,
How brave. Bill Baldwin used to say, sounding good in an AA meeting is the easiest thing in the world to do and the most unimportant.
I
you
like
for-
you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Bob, you're up.
I'm Bob. I'm an alcoholic. Kevin, and thank you so much. It was great to hear you. Thank you, everybody. Kevin, as I mentioned to you, I've been struggling as well, like since sometime in the summer. One of the worst periods I've gone through in sobriety. And I wonder if you could comment that this isn't directly related to what you were just sharing about, but we discussed it in our big book study group the other night, where in Bill's story, he said he realized he had to come to believe in a God that was personal to him, that it wasn't enough to just believe in a spirit of the universe, universal mind. I guess it could be those things also, but it had to be personal to him, and which I think also means like a God that cares about him, not a person. Can you comment about that?
Yes, in a roundabout way. I used to go to the 6 a.m. meeting because I relapsed into smoking cigarettes, and I'd sneak out of the house to go to the 6 a.m. meeting so I could smoke cigarettes for longer during the day. And there was this wonderful woman at the meeting who knew everyone's birthday. She brought flowers when it's your anniversary. She learned the newcomer's name, and she kept relapsing in opiates. And after her fourth relapse in 7 years, we were seated 4 feet away from each other. And she looked across the room to me and to everyone else and said, please don't give up on me. Please don't give up on me. And I think that's one of my newest prayers to God. Please don't give up on me. Well, God doesn't give up on me. God is always there. Spirit, I give up on me. That's the self-hatred. And so that question, the line appears twice in Bill's story, a God personal to me. I don't think that means a person. I think it means an intimate connection. In the same way that if you were physically intimate with someone, you would want to feel them close to you and to touch them and be touched back. It's the relationship with God, ideally, and in the Old Testament, the Torah, the Song of Solomon, he talks about it that way. And in different Hindu writings, they talk about that intimate connection. The man who taught me A.A. Keith, used to say, no matter who you get into bed with, it's always a three-way because it's you, the other person, and God's always there. It's inviting God into everything, that there's no judgment. A God who loves me no matter what. There's nothing I can do or fail to do. And that's got to be done on blind faith until it sinks in and we experience it. And then I know it's true. I'm the one who hates me. Though there's some religious groups that are not so much that way, but I don't buy that anymore. I don't think I could stay sober or stay breathing with a vengeful, punishing God. I had that for a parent. I don't need it from the divine, but we'll stay out of psychotherapy. But Bob, I think it's to take that very deep plunge. Look, ladies and gentlemen, I have this rude contention that 85% of the people in AA are faking spiritual orgasms. They have no idea of what they're talking about when they talk about conscious contact or union with divinity. And it can be as simple as just exhaling softly, and as simple as opening the front door and seeing the sun's out and enjoying it, or more complex and more profound. But it's allowing it to be, and then enjoying it, appreciating it. It's there for all of us. I really believe that. I close the door. What AA, the only things I haven't gotten in AA are the things I won't let it give me, because I'm so insistent it's got to be this, this, and that. If when I let go, it gets easier. Bob, I don't know if that helps, but we'll talk further. I hope.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Belinda,
So, Kevin, it's weird because while you were talking, I heard what I said about an hour or so ago. And I feel like this is like a fourth and fifth, like I did a fourth, and this is a fifth step in front of a whole bunch of people. So trying to be succinct here, make a long story short. So my son and his family and his wife and stuff have been incredible. And I'm from Nashville and they live in Upper Montclair. And my husband died, and my sons thought, and I did too, thought I should be around family or would want to be around family. And since my granddaughter's here, they actually bought a house, well, a condo. I sold my house, but they let me pick it out and within their parameters, and are taking care. Well, this place ended up having mold and it's making me sick, and I haven't been able to get in. And I didn't like how he's handling it, but I tried to be quiet because he's 40 and he wanted to do it his way. Even though I didn't like it, I tried to keep my mouth shut. But it's been months and I'm tired of being sick and tired of complaining about it. And that's not wrong. I don't think.
Marty Conrad.
Oops, sorry. But what I said, now to the point, is what I said tonight when I was over. But actually, I was there for a good reason. But what I said was, that we're in a weird relationship because I'm the mom, I'm the tenant, you're a landlord, you're the son, it's all this, stuff. And I said, and I look forward to when things are straightened out. I can just be in the house and I won't have to keep bringing things up that need done, and don't feel so self-centered. And I can just be a helpful friend, grandma and mom. That's not what I said. That's what I said out loud, but what I was really saying was, I can't wait till everything's the way I want it. The health part is important, but it's still, I'm not going to be, I always say I'm not going to be happy until I get it the way I want it. And, it's that self-hatred thing too, coming in there, because I don't want to be like that. And I don't want things, to be unhappy because of circumstances and people, it's all me. So anyway, it just helps me realize that I'm doing it, doing it. And you can comment on it, but I also have a question on the quote in Cradle. That's all. I'm Belinda, alcoholic anyway, too.
Thank you, Belinda. I try to force my will, and sometimes I get a little bit where I want to go, but it's never a lasting peace. And you're certainly right to want these things set right. But the other part that you said, the underneath, it just messes us up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's no relief in that. And that's, again, that's stupid. It's God's plan for me to be happy, joyous, and free. And my plan is to make me restless, irritable, and discontented. I've got to surrender, accept, and then embrace. It's going to be this way for a while. And then ask people to help me bear this, and ask higher power to help me bear this. Somebody sent me a quote recently. Joseph Campbell, the great myth person, said that in no ritual of seasons do the people ask for winter to go away. They ask to endure it. Let me bear this pain, not make it go away. And I want it to go away. Patience is the virtue everybody needs and nobody wants. But I'm happy you spoke to him. Now can you work on your insides so that you can be happier? My wife comes from Verona, the next town over, by the way.
Susan, you're up.
Hi, I'm Susan, alcoholic. I loved your lead. Thank you so much, Kevin. And I'm also from New York, so many of the places you talked about, 79th Street Workshop, Lenox Hill. I got sober in the one on 60th Street and Park Avenue, Midtown. So I met my husband. He actually, I think back in the in the early 80s, actually worked at Smithers also. When I first met him, that was his first job he had as like any kind of functioning person. I don't know, making like $15,000 a year or something like that, kind of getting back into life. So really good to kind of reminisce about New York, because I really, and you're totally right about the number of meetings that are there, and in the 80s, how step meetings were not nearly as as big until Joe and Charlie actually came back and brought them to life. And so, but your share, and also actually right before this, I haven't been on this meeting a couple of weeks, and right before this meeting, I was listening to one of the tapes of another one, Dr. Alan Berger spoke, which was absolutely incredible. And this is kind of very similar to what you were talking about in terms of emotional sobriety, and it all being about, our needs and our expectations, kind of not being met. And I've realized kind of really recently, and I'm a little bit emotional about it, so I'm shaky a little bit about it, but I've just really kind of come to understand how I've just tried to get the outside world to meet my needs. And it's like, I have these needs, whatever they are, to feel secure, to feel liked, to be valued, to not feel vulnerable, to feel safe, to feel appreciated, all these things I never got when I was a kid. And so I found a way, I guess, somewhere along the line to get outside circumstances to meet the needs. And it worked, and it continued to work until it stopped working. And then all of a sudden it's like, things are happening inside of me, and the situations outside, it's like I've created a paradigm whereby if I do X, Y, and Z, I'll get the results, that I want, the A, B, and C results if I do this X, Y, and Z. And what has really started to happen and to come to light in most recent weeks is that A plus B does not always equal C. And I'm not, just because I do the right thing, my needs aren't going to necessarily be met because the outside world doesn't know what my needs are, even though I've tried to create a world where the outside world does know that, where I want the outside world to do it. So I achieve, I get, or I do, and I receive. And, I'm just coming to see like this emotional immaturity. Honestly, I mean, forget about emotional sobriety. I mean, it's emotional immaturity to believe that the world and the people around it and everything it talks about in the article are going to give, that I'm going to demand, like I'm demanding that they satisfy me. Because if they don't satisfy me, then I'm just not going to be okay inside. And I don't know what else to do with these unmet needs. I just don't know what to do with these unmet needs. And so if I'm not going to drink, and I'm not going to get them filled by the outside world, then, I've got to look at that again and realize that those needs have to come from being supported elsewhere, not by the doing or the achieving, but by the support of a higher power, by the support of others that love me, that want to be there for me, that I can be vulnerable enough with to, to share what's really going on, and for them to turn around and then say, yeah, what you need really matters to me. I want you there. I want to be in your life. I want to support you in this way. You don't have to do anything to get anything from me. Like, and I can't get it myself. Like I can't, if I could go to Nordstrom and buy that, I would, but I can't. I have to, I have to ask for help. And so I don't really have a question, but that's what pretty much, got started me tonight. Thanks.
Susan, if it's okay, may I respond? Joel, would you do me a favor? I'm not able to use my phone to put my email in the chat. People have asked for it. Would you mind doing that for me? Anyone who would
Phone
want to
number? You want your
And the
phone
phone
number
number,
or your
sure.
email?
Both. Susan, I just suffer from that. I keep looking for insides. There was a guy in Jersey City from the NA program named Usman. I don't even know if he's alive anymore. And Usman used to say that the true meaning of the first step is to say that there will never be a material solution to a spiritual problem. And I keep thinking I can materially fix myself. And it is in that surrender. If you're going to save me, you better save me. Otherwise, I'm going down. I look around my apartment. I'm 70. We have a very lovely apartment. Who bought all this crap? Who thought you needed this, that, and the other thing? All these ways I tried to make myself happy, which for a few moments, it did. And then it was empty. It's only in the inside job. And if there's one thing that Corona showed us, nothing's safe. I mean, we all knew this, but it ground our nose into it. The safety is in our relations with each other, and most of all, my relationship within.
Charles, you're up.
Thank you, Joe. I'm a real alcoholic named Charles Freoff, and Kevin, I really, really appreciate that, man. I ran out of spots on my little notepad to take notes and stuff, because it's one of the things that hit me, and it's always been my problem, and is that if I wrote a book, it'd probably be titled, "How Do I Stop Being You?" Because I don't like who I was. And I've been coming to this meeting for about 3 years since it's been started. And I've got about 30 years of sobriety before I came to this meeting, but I started learning, like you said, that inside job. Man, we do the steps, we do everything the book tells us to do, and we get some relief. But some of us, I had too much fear going inside because I didn't like who I was. And I've learned going through this meeting and stuff and listening to people that I'm exactly who God wanted me to be right now. And that's a hard thing to accept. I have no education. You know, I've always supported my family real good, and I did everything on the outside is just perfect, you know. But on the inside, there was a little 8-year-old, 9-year-old boy just crying, not knowing how to communicate. I didn't know how to read or write until when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. I was diagnosed a chronic alcoholic and a junkie, and I was told people like me don't recover. So, you know, I forced myself to learn how to read just by reading everything I can get my hand, the big book especially. But it was just, you know, that for me to face my own reality was where I lost hope until I started coming to this meeting and realizing there's people, you know, with a friend of ours out in Colorado at 25 years talked about sticking a pistol in his mouth. And I knew him a long time, and he used to share with me that as this meeting goes, that we got to get those little things out. The little things, you know, that are deep down inside that we're too ashamed to let people know, you know, the things that happened to me, the things that, you know, I was unable to do. You know, I did a lot of brain damage, and you know, I can't remember things. So I have to accept that. Like you said, you embrace the idea, this is who I am. You know, I was allowed to survive my demise because the people that God puts in my life to sponsor and stuff are people just like me. Guys that were just, you know, bottom line hopeless. And I had a good friend of mine from church tell me one time that at some point we have to take that nesty plunge. You know, we just have to fall into God's arms and say, okay, you know, and that's hard to do. You know? But I know that, you know, I met God in my desperation. And being in, you know, in that presence. And the only way I've learned how to do that is just be present in his presence and not go outside down. Because if I don't, I deal with depression and everything too. And I have to just stay in the now. But I really loved your talk, man. It was great. And look forward to hearing from you again. You know?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, it's so funny. As a drunk, I had no problem with getting more. You know, you're not drunk enough, get another one. You're not drunk enough, get another one. You know, but with spiritual growth and emotional maturity, no, I think I've done enough. I shouldn't have to do anymore. I mean, when did I become so cheap? You know, it's this ridiculous paradox. I know how to be excessive. Hell, I'm a drama queen.
Abigail, before I call on you, I just want to share something with Kevin. I went to Fellowship of the Spirit last weekend, and it always rocks me being around my peeps. And about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I asked Dr. Berger about this dilemma I'm in, that I can't forgive my mother. And he said, sometimes you can't forgive. I mean, there are things that are unforgivable, you know, but you got to move on. So I'm thinking about it this weekend, and the thought came to me that I'm playing the wrong tape in my head. And one mother that I can't forgive is the mother from the 50s who was alcoholic, would beat me, you know, had black hair, she was a very good-looking woman, and she used to manipulate men with her sexual wares. And then I played the tape of the last month I spent with my mother when she was in hospice and she was sick on the bed. And that face I could forgive. I had to change the tape that was running in my head. That woman I could forgive, that sick old lady that was all alone, finally learned how to forgive. Abigail.
Actually, before you go, Abigail, if you could just give me 1 second. I really believe that forgiveness is the spiritual fuel for all spiritual vehicles. Judaism, Catholicism, Protestantism, Zen, Buddhism, Islam, forgiveness is what it is. And in forgiving them, I forgive me. But it's so crucial. And I'm so cheap at giving it away, but I suffer by holding on to it. It is the cause of my cancer. Sorry, Abigail.
Oh, please don't apologize. And thank you, Joel. That was actually beautiful to hear. And I primarily want to say thank you for your share, but also for the vulnerability it inspired tonight. And one of the things that I've been working with is that bully in the brain. And the, you know, I know all the stuff you're supposed to do, but just like you're saying, I'm very, geez, I have an addiction to more of everything except the techniques that might help me go deeper to get rid of that bully. And it's like the more you realize it's there, the louder it gets. And I don't want to embrace that effing bully. I just don't. And I'm not quite sure how, you know, other than to say prayer and to keep doing the steps. It's just an interesting dilemma that I'm working with now. And I find I'm 4 years sober. Done a lot of stuff for healing. So I get into this, I've already done that. Doesn't work. Nah, I'm not gonna do I'm defiant. I really appreciated your talk and everyone's shares tonight. Thank you.
Abigail, I worked with a spiritual teacher for a long time who used a certain Tibetan technique, though he's absolutely American. And one of the concepts he gave me, which is very useful, is that that kind of bully voice or whatever it is, was a part of me that at one time was helpful, or I thought it was helpful. But just like, you know, a tail, we don't need tails anymore. And if I can not try to get rid of it, but again, embrace, okay, this is part of me. And I guess it made some sense at some point in time, and not be fighting it, you know, because it says we've ceased to fight anyone or anything. And that's how we know I'm sane. Okay, there's this part of me that's insecure. There's this part of me that's self-hating, you know, not to get rid of it, but to allow it to be there, to stop fighting can make it so much easier. I've found that helps, because there's so many parts of me I'm so unhappy with.
Okay, and our last questionnaire will be Kathy.
Hey everybody, I'm an alcoholic, and my first time coming to this meeting as well. I was invited by someone else. I'm so grateful that I did, because I heard what I needed to hear, and I just hope to God I can put it into practice. This is my second year of sobriety. Time before this was almost 4 years. But to me, it's not emotional sobriety. I want emotional sobriety. I live with a lot of trauma. I grew up in an alcoholic. I'm trying to keep it as simple as I can. I grew up in an alcoholic home where there was a lot of abuse towards my mother. We lived in a lot of fear. I married into that because I thought that was normal. I divorced that because it wasn't normal. And I'm an alcoholic and addict myself. And now my daughter's living 6,000 kilometers away from me, and I'm trying to save her and I can't. And it's been like day 2 again. No response, avoiding. I don't know if she's dead or alive. And I go to bed fairly easily. I go to sleep fairly easily. But when I wake up, it's almost like I'm I'm drowning again. And I want to, like this evening, I wanted to reach out to her. I did, and she told me she'd call me back. She never do. And I'm told that I'm playing God, and that pisses me off. When I'm going through a hard time, I'm told I'm playing God. It pisses me off because I'm not playing God. I'm not trying to play God. I'm a mother. I have feelings and I have emotions. I don't think I'm playing God. I'm not trying to arrange or try to fix. I've already lost one child and I'm scared. And she tells me, Kathy, just give it to God. And I'm like, how do you give it to God? Just put it on a platter like you're serving a takeout meal and hand it over? I don't know. I'm just not getting this emotional part of it. And around me, they say be of service. So yeah, I do. I'm caring for my mother, who's 86 years old. I got a friend in the program a couple friends in the program who's dying with cancer. And my son, who's not in the program, is suggesting to me, Mom, you need to start surrounding yourself with more positive people. Oh no, I'm just all over the place I'm not playing God, man. I don't try to pretend to be God. I'm a human who hurts. I'm scared. I'm scared, man. Anyway, I got a lot from your share. I don't know. Maybe I'm just one of them mental defects. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just grateful to be here. Thank you.
Kathy, I had a beautiful spiritual teacher for many years. Her name was Judy Davidson, and she used to say, and she was a healer. She did Christian Science now, but she would say, darling, sometimes when I'm in pain, I don't need a Bible truth. I just need to be held. You know,
I'd like to add that one of the things I found very helpful for my recovery, and I didn't find it until I was 5 years sober, was Al-Anon. It's the same spiritual principles applied to my need to try and control and manipulate others or worry about others. And their behavior is affecting my serenity. I know I got to go to an Al-Anon meeting. All right, we're at that point now where we close by going into our inner room and either meditating or saying a prayer, and then we'll open up and thank the speakers. Thank you so much, Kevin. It was wonderful to hear you again.
so if I could say one quick last thing, my great sponsor, Bill Baldwin, who fired me and would never talk to me again, even though I made direct amends, but Bill still teaches me. And Bill would close all his talks by saying, all this deep intellectual spiritual talk is interesting, but one drink and the whole deal's off.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. That was
Thank you, Kevin.
beautiful.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you
Thank
again.
you, Veronica.
Wonderful. See you
Thank
next
you,
you.
everyone. Thank you,
Thanks,
Kevin.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Joel. Thanks,
Veronica.
Veronica.
Thank
Thanks,
you. That
Kevin.
was awesome.
Yeah, it was wonderful meeting. Wonderful.
Really, really appreciate it.
Kevin, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Aloha.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
Kathy.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, Kathy, try Al-Anon. Really works for me with my kid.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Aaron.
Thank you,
Bye-bye
Kevin.
now.
Thank you very much.
I noticed your name, Kevin. I've never seen the name Kevin Barry with the hyphen in between it there. So are you named for Kevin Barry?
My mother's maiden name was Barry, but I was named for the
Oh.
Irish, but I was named for the Irish patriot, also Kevin Barry.
Yeah, it jumped. I'm from Dublin, so it jumped at me when I saw. I thought Kevin Barry with a hyphen in the middle. Oh my God! First time.
My mother died when I was 8, and it lets me be connected to her.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. But I just thought, oh my God! And then of course there's a famous song.
Oh,
And
yes.
his mother actually didn't want that song published. And the reason she didn't want it published was because she said, I don't want to have my son's name be sung by drunken people in pubs. Ah, so typical Irish.
Typical. Thank you.
Thank you. And I enjoyed your program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Kevin really did appreciate that. I hope to send you an email and connect one of these days.
Please do. Let's talk. I'd like that a whole lot, Charles. Anybody who wants to talk, I'd be happy to. I love it.
Yeah.
We can't hear
Have
you.
a blessed evening.
Thank you.
Joe, good night.
Thank you.
I think you can speak now. Okay.
Yeah, I
Sarah?
think you're connected. No, still can't hear you. Sorry. Okay, she's gonna type you a message, Kevin.
Joe,
He can't read. He's got a. on
All
his
right,
phone.
I'll read it to you. How about
thank you
that?
so much. I appreciate that.
No problem.
I'm,
Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Kevin, my daughter moved to, or is in the process of moving to St. Nicholas Avenue and 130th Street. My wife's in a fit. She thinks it's a dangerous neighborhood. Whoa.
It's a lot safer than it used to be. It's getting much more gentrified. It is 20 years ago. It would have been true to be worried about it, but it's changing so much now.
That's what I told her.
I live 20 blocks from there. I'm a little further to the west, so I know the area. But your daughter should call Joel and get an upload on street smarts and how to walk around New York and just be careful.
My daughter is 33 and she's into her own bag.
So I have
You
her.
look her up on Facebook and stuff like that. She's like, she's something else.
If you'd want your daughter to call me, if I could be of help, give her my number.
She doesn't call me.
Oksana's, no, if your daughter moving to 135th would like to, if I could be of any help.
Okay, I'll let her know, but she probably won't. She's into underground burlesque.
Well, at least she's not boring.
No, she's not boring.
So this is what, I don't know if I'm saying your name right. Oksana? Oksana? Okay. She said her Zoom sucks. Thank you for your generosity and your earnest kindness. I don't have that. I could do that. I am so selfish and saw it clearly today. So that's what she was trying to say.
So we all get to work on things. But can we just do a little? Can we try? Not be the best, just try our best. Even if it's sloppy, especially if it's sloppy.
Thank you so much, y'all. Have a good night.
Good night, Julie. Thank
Joel,
you so much.
so very
Thank
much
you.
for letting me come.
Yeah, you know what's confusing the hell out of me? Didn't you used to wear glasses?
Yeah, I had my eyes fixed. I had cataracts, and right before Corona, and so I don't wear the glasses anymore. I just I've got some limitation on sight, but but not having to wear the glasses is pretty freeing. Yes,
Great seeing you again.
great to see you. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. All right.
Good night.
And
Yeah, I
thank you.
think we could close it, bring it down now.
All right.
Thank you for the picture of Ozzy. I love it.
Oh, man. What memories going up there. And you and Dan, when you spoke for me that one weekend, yeah, he passed about 5 years ago.
I've heard that.
Yeah, Dan Buckley. My two favorite Irishmen. The third one would be Malachi.
Right. Good night then, Joe.
Good
Thank you
night.
again.
Good night.